Welcome to another deep dive. We're tackling a really interesting age today,
Oh, yeah.
11.
11.
It seems like, we talk about little kids and teenagers,
Right.
but 11 kind of gets glossed over.
It's a weird in between. Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
And luckily, we have a great guide to help us break it all down.
Ooh, what's that?
It's called Understanding Your 11-Year-Old.
Okay, so is this like just for parents?
I
Or
think it's for anyone who deals with 11-year-olds.
that makes sense.
Teachers, coaches, aunts, uncles,
Oh, yeah.
anyone.
Anyone who's interacting with them, because I mean, it is a pretty distinct age.
Right from the get-go, the book calls 11 the precipice of a remarkable journey.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
It is, because it's not just, puberty is starting to hit.
Well, yeah.
It's like they're changing in every way.
Yeah, their bodies, their thinking, how they get along with other people.
All shifting.
I remember being super awkward at that age.
Oh, yeah.
My body was doing all these things I had no control over, and I just felt so out of sync.
The book talks about the science behind those growth spurts, which is actually fascinating.
Oh, tell me more.
It's all these hormonal shifts going on
Makes sense.
that affect not just how tall they get, but their mood swings.
Oh, right, like they're suddenly ravenous all the time.
That too.
Like my nephew, he's 11, can eat a whole pizza.
Well, and the book explains why they need a ton more calories because all that growth takes energy.
Okay, so it's not just picky eating, it's like biological.
It's fuel for the 11-year-old machine.
I like that, the 11-year-old
Yeah.
machine.
Right.
But it's not just the physical stuff, right?
No, not at all.
The book says 11 is when their thinking changes too.
Huge time for brain development, yeah.
In what way?
They start being able to think abstractly.
Oh, interesting.
So before it was all very concrete,
Right.
Now they can grasp like variables in math or hypothetical situations.
So, like, instead of just knowing 2 + 2 = 4,
Right.
they understand the idea of X representing an unknown number.
Yeah, or like the book uses this example. Imagine an 11-year-old trying to solve the riddle, what has a neck without a head?
Ooh, tricky.
Right. Younger kids get stuck on it being literally true, but now their brains can do that jump to thinking, oh, it's a bottle.
That's such a good example.
Right. It shows how their thinking is actually getting more sophisticated.
It makes me wonder how that impacts their social lives.
Oh, for sure.
Because, like, they're more aware themselves, but also how others see them.
And the book dives into this,
Like-
saying peer relationships become central at this age.
Yeah, you can see that.
Friendships get more complicated, cliques start forming.
And all that pressure to fit in,
Oh, huge pressure.
which I bet is even more intense now with social media.
The book talks about that too, how social media is this double-edged sword.
So,
On one hand, they connect with people who get them.
right, shared interests and all.
But it also makes those insecurities way worse.
Yeah, the comparison game.
Exactly. It's like they're navigating this whole new social world, online and offline, while trying to figure out who they are.
That sounds exhausting.
No kidding. And this is all happening along with the physical and mental changes we already talked about.
Phew, 11 is a lot.
A lot going on. Back again for more on the world of 11-year-olds.
Last time, we were talking about just how much is changing for them.
It really is a lot.
Yeah, their bodies, their emotions, their whole social scene.
But our guide, Understanding Your 11-Year-Old, doesn't just describe the problems.
Right.
It gives advice on how to deal with it all.
Which is great, because I'm sure plenty of people listening are like, okay, now what?
I know, I was thinking that.
And one thing I appreciated was how the book breaks things down.
Yeah, like chapter by chapter.
Right, like there's one called The Ups and Downs of Emotions.
Ooh, that sounds familiar.
Tell me about it. I mean, that was my life at 11.
Mine too, honestly. 1 minute you're on top of the world, the next you're in tears.
Over what, like a bad grade?
Could be anything. A fight with a friend, your favorite band breaking up.
Oh yeah, everything felt so huge.
And the book explains, it is partly biological, the hormones are surging.
So it's not just kids being dramatic for no reason.
Nope, there's real stuff happening in their brains.
Okay, so yelling at them to calm down probably isn't helpful.
Not really. The book stresses validating their feelings, even if we think they're overreacting.
Makes sense, but how do you do that?
Well, it gives tips. Like, instead of dismissing them, you acknowledge the emotion.
So saying something like, it sounds like you're really upset about that.
Exactly. And then helping them find healthy ways to cope.
My parents used to tell me to count to 10 when I got mad.
Classic.
Did it work? Not really.
This book has more modern ideas like mindfulness, deep breathing.
Okay, those sound more useful.
Even journaling can help.
Get those feelings out.
Right. And this leads into their social lives, which we touched on before.
Oh yeah, how friendships get so intense at 11.
Chapter 4 is all about this. Navigating the Social Maze.
Catchy title.
Right. And it talks about cliques, those social hierarchies.
It's like Mean Girls, but in middle school.
Exactly. And the stakes feel so high for them.
It's not just about being popular, right?
The book says it's deeper. It's about belonging.
Finding your people.
And feeling secure, which makes sense. They're still figuring out who they are.
But it must be tough for kids who don't fit neatly into any group.
Oh, absolutely. And the book addresses that too.
What does it say?
It's about supporting those kids, encouraging them to find their own tribe.
So not forcing them into a box they don't belong in.
Right, and teaching them how to advocate for themselves.
Good skills to have no matter what age you are.
Totally. But we can't forget about the digital social world either.
Oh, true. Got to talk about social media.
It's like a whole other layer of complexity.
On top of everything else they're going through.
And the book gets into how it's both good and bad.
In what ways?
Like it can help them find communities, express themselves creatively.
Right, I can see that.
But it also ramps up that pressure to conform.
The perfect life illusion.
Exactly, which is already hard enough to deal with offline.
So, what's the advice of parents?
Well, the book talks about setting boundaries, like screen time limits,
Okay, that seems reasonable.
and having open conversations about what they're seeing online.
Making sure they're not getting sucked into unhealthy stuff.
Exactly, and helping them think critically about the information they're bombarded with.
So it's like they need social skills, but for the internet.
Which is kind of a new thing. We're all figuring it out.
But at least if adults are aware of it, we can guide them better.
That's the goal. And speaking of guidance, the book also talks about talents and passions.
Oh, that's important.
Right. Chapter 5 is all about fostering interests and abilities.
Makes sense they're at an age where they're trying all sorts of things.
And they have so much energy. It's amazing to see them get into something they love.
But it's more than just a hobby, right?
The book says exploring interests helps them develop their sense of self.
Builds confidence too, I bet.
And it teaches life skills, whether it's sports, coding, music, whatever.
Like what kind of skills?
Things like resilience, problem solving, teamwork.
Oh yeah, those are super valuable.
Plus, it can help them make friends with people who share their interests.
So, back to that social connection piece again.
It all ties together, finding those spaces where they feel accepted, understood.
Where they could just be themselves.
And that can be online or offline. The key is for adults to create those supportive environments.
So at home, at school, and after-school programs, wherever.
It's about giving them opportunities to try things out, encouraging their creativity.
And celebrating their efforts, even if they're not like a prodigy at something.
Right. It's about fostering that growth mindset.
That their abilities can develop over time with effort.
Which is so important because at this age, comparison is huge.
They see other kids excelling and feel bad about themselves.
And it's our job to remind them it's okay to not be perfect right away.
It's okay to make mistakes. It's all part of learning.
A lesson we could all stand to remember, honestly.
Totally. But before we move on, I wanted to mention something the book kept emphasizing.
What's that?
Self-care, even for 11-year-olds.
Oh, that's a good one.
They have a whole chapter on it, prioritizing well-being.
It's so easy to focus on all the external stuff. We forget about their inner world.
Right. The book says it's crucial they learn healthy habits early on.
Sleep, nutrition, exercise, stress management, the whole 9 yards.
And it's not just about telling them what to do, it's about us modeling it.
Oh, for sure. Actions speak louder than words.
If we're always on our phones, eating junk food, and running on empty,
They're going to pick up on that.
it sends the message that self-care isn't important.
So we have to create a culture of well-being, showing them it's okay to prioritize themselves.
That's a good takeaway for everyone listening, I think.
Couldn't agree more.
Welcome back to the deep dive. We're in the home stretch now.
You know, going through this book, it makes you realize how much we don't get about 11-year-olds.
You've talked about so much already.
The changes, the pressures, even taking care of themselves.
But there's even more to unpack.
Right. Like there's this whole chapter on communication.
The power of communication, that's chapter 7.
Yeah, and it's not just about them learning to communicate.
Oh, interesting.
It's about how we can connect with them better.
Which makes sense because their thoughts and feelings are getting more complex.
But they might not have the words for it yet.
So how do we help with that?
Well, the book has some really practical tips.
Right.
Like instead of just asking, how was your day?
Which, let's be real, gets you a grunt in response.
Exactly. Try something more specific, like what was the most interesting thing you learned today?
Oh, I like that.
Or what made you laugh?
It shows you're actually interested.
And it gives them something concrete to talk about.
It's not just about talking at them, though, right?
No, listening is huge. Really paying attention to what they're saying.
Both the words and the, body language.
Exactly. Sometimes what they don't say is just as important.
It makes me think back to being 11, feeling like no one understood me.
We've all been there.
And maybe I wasn't great at explaining things, but I really needed someone to just hear me.
The book even talks about how our communication matters.
As adults,
Yeah, like our tone of voice, our body language.
that stuff can be super subtle.
But kids pick up on it even if we don't realize we're sending mixed messages.
I was so tuned into my parents' moods at that age.
If they were stressed, I'd think it was my fault.
Or if they seemed distracted, I'd feel like they didn't care.
It's a good reminder for us to be mindful of how we're coming across.
Especially to the 11-year-olds in our lives.
Speaking of which, the book also talks about empowering them
To do what?
to make a difference in the world. Chapter 8 is all about that.
Making a difference. I like it.
It talks about how 11-year-olds are starting to care about stuff beyond themselves.
Oh yeah, they get really passionate about causes.
Exactly, and the book encourages us to support that,
By doing what?
giving them opportunities to get involved, whether it's volunteering or speaking up about what they believe in,
That's awesome. It shows them that their voice matters.
and that even small actions can make a difference.
It doesn't have to be, solving world hunger, right?
Nope, it could be standing up for someone being bullied or helping out at home.
Just fostering that sense of responsibility and empathy.
Exactly, which leads us to the final chapter, Looking Ahead.
Okay, what's that about?
It's about supporting 11-year-olds as they move into adolescence.
Oh, wow. Time flies.
It reminds us this is just one stage in their journey.
And all the stuff they're learning now will help them later on.
Our job isn't to control them, but to guide them,
Give them the tools they need and the confidence to use them.
knowing we've got their back no matter what.
Well, this deep dive has been really eye-opening.
I feel like I understand 11-year-olds so much better now.
And this book, Understanding Your 11-Year-Old, has been an amazing resource.
It's full of practical advice, real-world stories, and insights that anyone can use.
Whether you're a parent, teacher, or just someone who wants to connect with this age group.
We highly recommend checking it out.
You can find links to buy it on Amazon in the description of this video.
And that brings us to the end of another deep dive.
Thanks for joining us on this journey. We'll see you next time for a whole new topic.